So yeah, man, it's great to meet you. I'm looking forward to getting in to the architects and the world of music that you're in. So thank you. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, you bet. So before we get into the architects, before we get into this big debut, which is a big deal, I want to know this. 5 years ago, this pandemic changed our lives, changed so many things about what we were doing, especially musicians. How did you make it through that COVID era, and how has it influenced the way that you create and roll today?
I well, I think once it kind of dawned on me that this was going to be more than a few weeks, I kind of just buckled down and practiced. And I mean, I was, in terms of like real life, I was teaching adjunct at like 20 different schools at that point because I mean, I took on a bunch more because so many students dropped out. So I was just like I would have like two students at one school, two students, I mean, the nice thing is it was all online, so I could at least still like pay rent to some degree. Other than that, I just kind of went inside and wrote a whole bunch of music and actually just I mean, in a sense, it was really nice to just kind of be like, there's nothing I can really do except practice. I mean, I wasn't really performing, so it was kind of nice to turn inside for a while. I would say since then, and I still remember the feeling of like kind of when we got out of it, when we were starting to get out of it for real. Those were some of the greatest audiences I've ever played to. There was that palpable like, oh my God, we're back,
Yeah.
and to some degree, for a while, it felt like the whole room, it was kind of forefront of their mind how this might sound like overstating, but kind of blessed we are to be in a room with other people experiencing a live event of art, like an expression of humanity. And I really think like while that can sound a little ridiculous, like I feel like it just felt way more impactful for a little while because we had been deprived of it. And then, I don't want to, not to say that it totally went away. I still think that like there are a good number of shows I play that feel a little more special than it still feels like there's people that are still kind of like, man, live music.
Yeah.
Whereas I think a lot of society could kind of go right back to taking it for granted.
It was like one of those 9/11 moments. Once the veneer runs off, people just naturally go back to their lives. And I used to ask around the 22, 23 time period, what was it like to be back on stage? Do you still feel that exhilaration? But it just naturally will wear off.
Yeah.
And being a jazz radio guy, like I'm always very cognizant whenever I cover a show to take a deep breath and just realize where I'm at and what's going on and all of that. I think that's always just but especially after that, I mean, there was a level of like, wow, we don't have to do the masks. We aren't restricted. There's all these extra people here. It was just a different level of exhilaration, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So,
Completely.
uh, so let's get into the architects. I know you've been around, you have other incarnations of music, but this is the big debut. And anytime you throw the word debut around when you're a musician, it's a big deal. It's your calling card. It's the thing that people are going to remember you by.
Yeah.
What was it like to create this album? How good does it feel that it's out in the world?
I'm very excited about it. I think it marks a little bit of a turning point for me compositionally, but in a way that's like I'm just more relaxed.
Yeah.
I feel like as I get older, I'm I mean I'm what am I trying to say? I was very happy with the albums that came before this, and for a while I was kind of running like a septet, octet, which, for various reasons, it's a lot of managing people. It's a lot of like how can we get gigs that can even pay enough for, this many people, that kind of stuff. But at the same time, I think for me, just compositionally, it's what I was hearing, and I'm proud of those albums. But I think as I got older, I started kind of to, I've gotten less worried about things I learned in jazz school and stuff like that, and more into like, I just want the first thing to be fun and relatability. And, and and not that the ones before that weren't that, but it wasn't maybe the driving factor. And th to me, this album is kind of really getting back to like what first excited me about music, and really like suspending any judgment as I'm writing it. So there's a lot more kind of just funky backbeat grooves. There's a lot more just what would be the most fun to play right now, and that's kind of what guided the compositions, you know.
So it comes out on Halloween. What do you do on release day? Do you have any kind of like traditions, anything that you do when the album's actually physically out or digitally out, I should say?
No, I mean, no, not more than just bug the hell out of all my friends and everybody I know. But no, we're and honestly, Halloween, aside from all the online stuff, I'm going to be taking my kids trick or treating and stuff. So to me, it's really like the big release is the first with our first release show in Cleveland. So just kind of preparing for that and getting the word out for that, and then couple weeks into November, we start kind of touring to support it around the Midwest, and so yeah,
One of my favorite things about Halloween, getting so many discs in the mail after I listen to them, because I have a CD player in my car. I love it, and then I
yeah,
rip my tracks down. I give all of the CDs out to kids for Halloween, all right? And half of them look at me like something fell out of a spaceship. Like, what am I supposed to do with this?
yeah. I could see for a lot of kids that's a trick.
Yeah, exactly. It is
They're like,
until
man,
the parents say, "Hey, that's my treat. I'll go ahead and take that because they got the CD player."
yeah,
You know.
yeah.
So ultimately, at the end of the day, what do you hope the listener gets from this debut?
Um, I hope that it's very fun to listen to. My kind of joking way of summing it up is it's uh kind of an offbeat jazz musician trying to do a funk album. So I'm not trying to align it to like this is funk or whatever. I've also hit an age where like I realize that it's filtered through me, and I'm just totally accepting that, and it's fun. So I think while I do think it's got like nice grooves, it's probably one of the catchier albums I've made, or like a little more accessible for people that are not hardcore jazz listeners. Um, it still takes a lot of left turns, and I think we sneak in a lot of dissonance and some kind of explorations and stuff. So uh, I guess that's it. I guess I hope it's fun enough that you're also taking in some of the weird moments, and it kind of keeps it interesting, and I hope it's just a fun ride.
And that's a natural segue into, you know, shifting paradigm. Every time I get albums in the mail, each label has their own distinctive vibe, and shifting paradigm is definitely out of Minneapolis has kind of come in to the forefront of being really on the cutting edge of what is evolving, what is kind of new, where this envelope of jazz in 2025 is going.
Mhm.
And how good does it feel to be on this label? How supportive, how much of that environment helps you as a creative put this out?
Yeah, they're great. They're very supportive. I mean, I've been aware of them. I was in Chicago for about 10 years, and just by proximity, they have a lot of Chicago people on there. So it's just kind of it was well known in the scene there, and being somewhat aware of Minneapolis musicians and the stuff. It's a really nice vibe. They're as long as it's somewhere within their ballpark, they're very open to artists that are kind of doing kind of zigzagging a little in their sound and stuff. And there's a lot of people on the label that I just have a huge amount of respect for. So it's nice to be a part of it.
So, how did you pick up the guitar in the beginning? Actually, take me back to where you were born and raised. How did the guitar, and then how did jazz become your career?
Dayton, Ohio, a smaller town and kind of getting towards southern Ohio. My mother was a concert pianist for a good part of my childhood. So there was music in the house all the time. It was, they like to tell the stories of me sleeping under the piano while she was practicing and stuff. And there was an old kind of classical guitar laying around the house that I started messing around on, and she knew just some like, open chords and full chords. So it was just self-taught. When I was, that was probably when I was 8 or something. And then I think around 11, I had a neighbor that had an electric guitar, and it was in terrible shape. It was just this real cheap thing, and their parent had kind of retrofitted a stereo speaker to kind of be an amp, but it was not great. But my reaction was really just to how loud it was. I loved it, so I just went home and just like made a deal with my parents to do a bunch of chores for the next month, and they gave me $30, and the neighbor sold it to me for $30, and I just played that thing for like a year, and it wouldn't hold tune. It was, I didn't really know. I just liked to play it because I just wanted to look like a guitarist or something. And then eventually I was doing some lessons at local music stores and stuff like that, but pretty much self-taught. Was in like a lot, this was all rock. Eventually was in a bunch of garage bands in middle school, and for me it just became my kind of social scene because I think I was in like seventh grade, but I had gotten good enough at guitar that like high school seniors were starting bands and asking me to join. So I got to hang out with all the high school kids and go to parties and stuff. And my parents were, my mom was very supportive. When I think about it, it's like after, and Dayton was actually a very nice scene in that it was small enough, but had at least like kind of an indie rock history. There was like Guided by Voices and some other like kind of well-known bands that were around. And I started getting to record with these older musicians in Dayton, just like rock and kind of some different styles like that, folk. And to me, it was just like I had made it. I was this little kid and I got to go like be in the studio and be on people's albums and stuff. Uh, and then my parents would, they would come to the clubs for shows because I was too young to get in. So they sat through a lot, now as a parent, I'm like, man, they sat through a lot of, late night bar gigs. And I was in some jam bands that toured around and just kind of did all that stuff. But then I was going to go to college for writing, I think, or maybe philosophy at some point. So I started college just kind of undeclared. And after a year, dropped out, and I was reading too many like beatnik novels, so I just like bought a van and drove around the country, like living in the van for a while and doing odd jobs all over the place. And then a year later, got back to school. Eventually, was practicing guitar more than I was doing homework, and it didn't it didn't seem like that hard of a phone call to call my parents and say like I'm changing my major from philosophy to jazz guitar. It's not like I'm gonna be an accountant or something. So I figured like, and they were cool with it. So then I ended up going to Bowling Green State University and still having like no academic background in music. It was, they were kind of giggling at me at my audition because I didn't know. I mean, I guess I convinced them that I knew my way around the instrument well enough, but they'd be like, play a scale, and I played a scale, and they said, "What scale is that?" And I said, "I don't know. It's what I use to improvise on minor songs in my band." And they'd kind of laugh, and just be like, "Do you know any of this?" I was like, "No." And they kind of said, "Well, you seem to know the instrument well enough. We're going to let you in, and you're either going to fail out pretty quickly, or you're probably not going to get a lot of sleep trying to catch up for a while." And that's kind of what happened. And and then got out of there and moved to Cleveland. It's just kind of the closest big city, and just spent a number of years gigging and just trying to pay rent, gigging and teaching, and uh, getting to play a lot with the older people in town, and it was great. And then eventually got a master's at North Texas, met a bunch of great people there, got to play with a ton of people, spent a few years in Dallas, then moved to Chicago. My wife and I kind of just decided we wanted to be in the Midwest and wanted to be in a big town, so just moved to Chicago and spent 10 years there getting to play with a bunch of amazing people. And then 3 kids later, ended up back in Ohio around family, and it's where I am at.
So
That's the
let me,
long story.
yeah, no, I like it. I like it. You hit a lot of points I was going to try to hit on. Let me ask you this. What was the first live jazz show you saw that blew you away? Or the first show that made you think I want to be on stage?
It's funny, but probably my high school had like a yearly battle of the bands kind of thing, which was really just like a talent show.
Yeah.
But they had a really nice theater, and it had become like the event of the year for the school. So it was a really nice stage, and I just remember playing, just playing like rock band covers, um, but to a packed house that's like that loves it, and just that feeling was like, okay, like this is the fact that I can do this and it evokes that response was fantastic. So kind of from then on,
Yeah.
and then I think and it changes. As a kid, you're pretty like I definitely had rosy glasses and was just like, this is amazing. And then after years of playing clubs, you're kind of like, all right, okay, another
Yeah.
club. But that feeling, it's funny. It's kind of gone up and down at times, but I feel basically as strongly now as I don't know. I'm in a period right now where I don't take live performance for granted, um, and I love it. So
Right on.
it's still worth it. It's still worth all the driving and all the stuff.
So let me ask you this. What gets you up every day? As a musician, what do you like the best about being a professional musician?
I like, it depends on the day. On other days, I might say I hate it, but I really love that there's always going to be something to learn. Like
Yeah.
I'm very much kind of a freak about practicing, but it's not necessarily like I want to be faster or able to do this or that. It's really, as I've gotten older, it's just kind of evolved into like I love having an ongoing relationship with this art form. And while sometimes it's frustrating that I'm never going to be able to say like I got there, I finished music. That's also beautiful. Like
Yeah.
I am the fact that I'm able to make a life in which every day I put energy into getting better at this art form, and the getting better is no longer like the college me of just like I need to get better. It's like I'm in this and I kind of owe it to the tradition and the art form to give it my all while I still physically can every day. And there's something about that that just feels like you're part of this lineage. And you're just like, and every day it's like I listen to my heroes and I'm like, oh my God, I need to practice more. But it's again, it's not the school version of I need to practice. It's like, I need to practice. This is amazing. And
Yeah.
and it's like it feels like I'm daily inspired.
I love
And
it.
then people I get to play with and people I go listen to. And it's just like I feel like once you get past the maybe I don't necessarily want to call it competition, but the comparison game and a lot of the other things that you can jump through, like when you're in school for it and stuff, um, then it just becomes like, man, I'm so excited. If a new guitarist moves to town and they sound fantastic, it's been nice to notice. Like, I'm not like, oh, I hope they don't take my gigs. I'm like, that's awesome. I'm gonna go see them play. I'm gonna pick their brain about this thing they do that sounds great, and it actually like. a lot of the pressure goes away, and you're just like, this is so much fun.
Yeah,
I love, I don't, I mean, to some degree right now, the elephant in the room is the current administration is not making it easy. But even because of that, I'm still just, I thank God I'm able to still do it every day. And I hope that we get through this.
I do too. And we have to keep our chin up for the kids. We got to
Yeah,
keep going, right?
yeah, and it's worth it. I
Yeah,
mean, can you imagine if, like, I mean, I don't necessarily say like, oh, I hope my kids grow up to have to like, because it's a hard life, it's a hard career. You don't ever stop working. But I hope that they have at least a relationship with music, or it could be sports, or it could be theater or dance. Or I hope they have enough things in their life that are either witnessing or actively doing expressions of humanity that are just fulfilling in a way that don't need to get you anything or get you anywhere, but they're just like, you're human, and our species has been doing this since the dawn of our species,
yep,
and just get involved.
yep. That's it.
And especially like as they're jamming AI down our throats and everything, it's like, man, no, just like pause, put down the phone, and look at ways that people have been expressing just that I'm human. I don't know what that means, and we're in it together.
That's it. So if you could get into a time machine and go back in time and see one jazz show, where are you going?
And you want a jazz show.
No, you can, it can be anything.
My brain went to Bach. I
Oh,
was
yeah,
thinking,
that's
like,
fine.
can you imagine just being
Yeah,
in Germany and going to that church
yeah,
and like being like, he wrote that last
yeah,
week, and then the next week being like, he wrote, wait, is he improvising?
yeah,
What the hell?
yeah,
I don't know. I just, when I think about the logistics of like that was a human being
yeah,
that was doing that every day. So that's and that's what I jumped into. For jazz, it would probably be something like, I mean, as I have such a modern slant in my like, and my jazz umbrella is very large, but I kind of feel like I can't imagine what it would be like to just see like Louis Armstrong, like in his element,
yeah,
like just to go back and be like, I'm in New Orleans in like 1918,
yeah,
and just to, and because it's like, I mean, I put him in the same camp as Bach. I think it's just that the awe of like and you could listen to the album and be like, this guy's raving about Louis Armstrong when you're listening to like distorted guitar solos and funk and stuff. But it's like, yes, yes,
yeah,
and
yeah,
I just to like, because it almost feels mythical, and a lot of the stories kind of probably are to some degree mythologized,
yeah,
but you know that there's something there when that person put that trumpet up,
yeah,
in a sense, it's like there was something there that made even your average person remember it and talk about it.
yeah,
And it's that.
for sure. So the Architects comes out on October 31st, Halloween. Uh, if anybody wants a copy, they want to catch you live, any of the other good business, any of the other projects in your life, where do they go?
So danbrucemusic.com, the website is good when I'm keeping it up to date. Shifting Paradigm, you can always go to their website, and obviously, as we talked about, you could just peruse everybody on that site, and I don't think you're gonna hit anything that's bad. Um, Bandcamp is a great place to get it, and
Yeah,
then we're gonna be November, December. We're gonna be around the Midwest. That'll all be on my website. We're doing Pittsburgh, Rochester, Erie, Toronto. I think we're doing Toledo, and then we're working on a spring. I kind of do these like, let's do a week or two, and then kind of get through the worst part of winter, and then I'll see you again in March, and we're going to be out probably around Chicago and stuff in March. So if you check in on my website, I'll be keeping it up to date,
cool.
and I'm just going to be running around playing.
I love it. I will put all these links on the show notes. Dan, so great to meet you, man. Thank you so much for taking a minute out today. I
Yeah,
appreciate it.
thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, you bet.